It's time for the 2015 Tiki and Tierney NFL Training Camp Two-A-Days as we visit all 32 NFL camps to preview the upcoming season. Detroit Lions, 11-5, second in the NFC North.
Cowboys show blitz. Matthew checks his protection. Now he's got the football and he wants to throw. Pocket hold. Stafford stepping up, throws. Got a man wide open at the 25. It's Golden Tate at the 15. Golden Tate at the 10. To the end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions. Stafford to Tate. 51 yards on the connection.
Matthew Stafford and the Lions finished a solid regular season with a disappointing and controversial playoff loss after a seemingly botched call by the refs. Star defensive tackle Ndamukong Suh left for Miami, but the Lions filled the void admirably with Haloti Ngata. Calvin Johnson finally has some running mates with Golden Tate and Eric Ebron. But is this team ready to win now?
One of the things we set out to do is we set out to come in and win right now, and not to have some sort of two-year plan. It doesn't work in this league, but I think our guys learned while winning.
All right, trying to take the next step. That is Coach Caldwell. The Lions coming off 11 wins, as you heard. Let's talk about them now, preview them. Certainly a team that is very intriguing on paper, and Tony Ortiz covers them on the sideline for the Lions. Been there for a long time. Yeah, Tony, start with the quarterback here. Boy, time flies. First overall pick back in 2009. He got over 20,000-plus yards already, a ton of touchdowns, a ton of 400-yard games. Doesn't necessarily have a lot of wins. He's 7 games below 500 for his career. What is Stafford right now entering season number 7?
He's a good to very good quarterback in the NFL who has not won a playoff game and still has a lot to prove, not only to the fans, but even to maybe a couple of members of the organization. The key for Matthew Stafford, though, is when he's got a chance to lead the Lions, when he's got a chance to play well, not only does he have to play well, but he's also got to elevate the play of those around him. That's been one of the criticisms of Matthew Stafford since he's arrived in Detroit, guys, that he's never been able to elevate the play of the guys around him.
Well, I think it's also because of the crutch of Calvin Johnson, but I think we talk about Golden Tate and how he came in. He's got to run routes. He's got to have precision and be on his drops correctly as opposed to just getting back there and winging it like a gunslinger. That's the evolution that any great quarterback needs to make. Did Jim Caldwell coming there start to bring that level of discipline to him?
Not only did Jim Caldwell bring it, but also the offensive coordinator, Joe Lombardi, coming over from New Orleans Saints. He brought some of that system that Drew Brees has been able to operate in for years very well. He brought that over here to Detroit. It was a bit of a learning curve in the beginning for Matthew Stafford in the offense, but they seem to get better with it toward the end of the year. So far in the preseason, they've been solid. So far in training camp, they've been solid with it as well. But the true test is going to be when they actually get out there. The one thing that's going to help them, though, they do have a better running game this year. Joique Bell is finally healthy. He's going to be on the field for week 1. But Amir Abdullah gives them something that Reggie Bush didn't last year, which is that speed element. But he's also healthier, and he's also a little more dynamic at this stage of his career than Reggie Bush was.
Now you're right, and sorry, BT, but Tony, you took my thought and you put it right on the forefront. The running backs, I love them. Amir Abdullah is fantastic. Tell me about the kid Zach Zenner, though. It seems like he may find a way to sneak himself on this team.
Yeah, if you're putting the 53-man roster together right now, Zach Zenner is one of those guys on the roster, and at the running back, probably at the last position. The one thing that Zach Zenner's been able to do is when he's gotten his opportunities to produce, he's done so, and that's opened up a lot of eyes here. In the beginning, he was kind of that oddity. Here's a guy who gained 2,000 yards 3 straight seasons in college, and you didn't know if he could stick. But the more he's played, the better he's gotten, and he's definitely gotten the notice of a lot of coaches on the offensive side of the ball with the fact that he just continues to improve week after week.
We'll talk to Tony Ortiz, sideline man, Lions, been there a long time. Those are the franchise in and out. Tiki and Tierney, 2 days. By the way, we'll do the Seahawks next, and third hour we'll do the Ravens with Chris Canty, their D lineman. You know how this goes, Tony. The national narrative is that Megatron, not quite what he was, losing a step, not the same guy. What'd you see this summer?
I think he's slowly getting back to where he was. I had a chance to talk to him about that about 2 weeks ago, BT, and the one thing that he said was he's using that as motivation this year. He wants people to doubt him. He wants people to think that he's lost a step, that he's not the same player he was, because it gives him a chance to show them that they're wrong. The one thing that Jim Caldwell has done, and I think smartly with Calvin Johnson, is not play him at all during the preseason. You don't need to see anything from this guy in the preseason. You know what Calvin Johnson brings. The other part of that, too, is it keeps him healthier. So instead of losing a game or two in the regular season because he was able to play in the preseason, there's a chance you might get 14, 15, even 16 games out of Calvin this year, which is something he hasn't been able to do the last couple of years.
Yeah, it's been a while. Hey, Tony, big picture here. Obviously, the Packers are terrific, even without Jordy Nelson done for the season. I think we all would agree the Bears are a distant fourth. To me, one of the more interesting races is probably for a wild card, if they can't unseat the Packers, is between Detroit and the Vikings. Where to stack up the division in your eyes? You know the players better than we do. What do you see?
I think the Packers are the best team in the division without Jordy Nelson, but I think the range between the Packers and the Lions is starting to narrow. But I think the problem here is the Vikings are getting better. They've had a couple of good drafts, and I think they've got the right quarterback in place in Teddy Bridgewater. And I also think that the return of Adrian Peterson takes some of the pressure off of Bridgewater. Those are the three best teams in the division. I think the two games between the Lions and Vikings will tell the tale who finishes second and is in the race for the wild card and who finishes third. The first game between those two is the second week of the season in Minnesota, and I think that's going to tell the tale as to which one of these teams is the best. I will say this much. There's 11 teams, guys, in the NFC that are legitimate playoff contenders. The Lions are one of them. So the games between NFC teams could almost be like division games because they're going to count double once you start getting into tiebreaker scenarios. So it's important for the Lions to win those games against those other NFC teams that they have on the schedule.
Tony, interestingly on the defensive side of the ball, you lose Ndamukong Suh, but now you get Elodi Nada, and he's a little banged up in the preseason. But tell me about the kid Ziggy Ansah, who is going in his second year. He's supposed to be this elite pass rusher. Does he have enough in that front seven, meaning the Detroit Lions? Do they have enough in that front seven to protect what's behind them?
To be determined, because we haven't seen Elodi Nada yet get out there on the field to team up with Ziggy to see what they can do together because of the injury that you mentioned just before the start of training camp. The feeling is that this is the year for Ansah to bloom and become a double-digit sack guy. And let's be honest, the Lions need him to get those double digits in sacks because they have struggled in the preseason putting heat on the quarterback, which was something they didn't have a problem doing last year. The one time they did get heat on the quarterback was when they faced the Washington Redskins last week in the preseason, but that's a whole different story. That Redskins team is pretty bad, and it seems like everybody's getting pressure on whoever the quarterback, be it Cousins or Griffin. So you kind of throw that one out a little bit. You want to see what they do against teams with pretty good offensive lines to see if they can generate that kind of heat on the quarterback they desperately need.
You know, Tony, one thing I know about Lion fans, because I took calls from them, granted it's a million years ago at this point when I was there in what was it, 2000, 2001, is that they are resilient, man. And amazingly, it's been 5-6 decades since they won a championship, and it wasn't even the Super Bowl, as you well know. For a fan base that's tortured, Lion fans skew positively, which is amazing. Describe the mental, do Lion fans think they can win the Super Bowl now, or are they kind of in between? What are they thinking?
BT, this won't surprise you, but Lions fans believe they can win. Some Lions fans believe they can win the Super Bowl this year with the team as is.
Okay.
Most Lions fans don't believe they can get into the playoffs, and once they get into the playoffs, maybe they can make some noise. Here's the thing. This team could be better this year than they were last year, but the record not reflected. Lions fans will look at that and say they took a step backwards. In reality, they may not. They may have taken a step forward. But you're right. Lions fans are relentlessly optimistic about this team until they start losing. If they start losing, the losses start piling up. As you know, that optimism goes right out the window, and they become quickly negative.
Yeah, then it turns into full-blown rage. That is a very quick – the needle shifts. When it shifts on a dime. Tony Ortiz covers the Lions. He's been entrenched there for a long time. Tony, appreciate it, buddy. Good job.
Thanks, guys. Take care.